Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your host, Brian Berneman, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined all the way from Phoenix in the United States by Peter Benson. Thank you so much, Peter, for being here with us and for sharing this space. For everybody that is listening and watching, can you share a little bit about Peter? Who are you and your journey?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, Brian. It's a pleasure, really is. It's basically I started off, life as a mechanic, working on cars day in, day out, that kind of stuff. Grease monkey, working on cars. Then I progressed, went back to school, and then I started working in semiconductor as a technician, engineering technician, and come into a life shift where I started realizing we're a lot more than we're, led on to be. Michael Newton, Brian Weiss, Life Between Life, Journey of the Soul, then Dolores Cannon's books. Oh my, those books just blow it out of the water. So at that point, I'm like, okay, there's more to this. And I found Slim Sperling's information on tensor rings. And then from there, my life literally started shifting completely. So going from a mechanic to engineering technician to a major life change, and this discovery of what's out there, who am I, where do I fit into all this? So it was that, the Slim Sperling stuff was amazing. Michael Newton, Dolores Cannon, very instrumental on, where I am today.
Mm. Beautiful. I love a lot of times listening to life stories to understand where we were and where we are now and what happened. And I'm curious, Peter, if you would be able to share like you're living this life as a mechanic and then in engineering. How did you get into those books? Like, did someone share them with you? Did you just discover those books? What prompted that curiosity in your life?
Actually, I kind of fumbled upon the Michael Newton one, and I just found it, and I'm like, so it was put in the way. It was a synchronistic finding. The Journey of the Soul was the first book I read, and it was really, really interesting on all levels. To where Michael Newton fully admits in the beginning of the book, he's like, I am a straight up psychologist. You come in, I'll talk, we talk and we do all this stuff, and it's going to take forever to get the stuff done, but we will work on it week by week by week. And he was like, okay, he was working with one woman and it wasn't working. It wasn't working. And he's like, okay. And finally the lady agreed to doing hypnosis. And the way he said it to her, it's like, okay, let's go back to the time where this issue began. And when that happened, she was back in like 1800s with this lifetime, and all of a sudden in this closet or whatever it was, and hiding from, some people. So it was just like, he goes, I didn't even know where to be. What was going on? I had no idea. So it's kind of an analogy to where, all of our journeys, it's like all of a sudden things just end up in your plate. And I'm like, okay, let's roll with this and see where it goes.
Cool. And so in that time for you, how were you able to actually choose where to go as you're, like, I don't want to put words, but a lot of times when we go through stages like that, like there's an awakening of a different perspective or a different life or a different state. What was that redirection for you?
So, what was going on in my life at that time was a self-doubt and ending of, the family structures at the time. And, after 20 years of trying to rediscover who I was and what part of every day is me and not a part of everything else. So it just, it's one of those things. I started reading these books. I'm like, this is interesting. Okay, continue on. And after looking at these books and showing that it's like, okay, we are this energy being, and I've done all these things in different lifetimes. And okay, what are these? I mean, not me, but in the books, I was showing all these different things and different people. But I'm looking at it going, okay, what did I do? What were my past lives? What did, all those? So it kind of put me on that path to understanding, okay, so why am I here? And it was like a couple years on where I think it was like 2 years after that, where I did have like a Kundalini event. Just I've only had it once, but it was one, and it was showing me, the energy of it, and it was like it was kind of like shocking and awesome at the same time. And then from there, it was, I was still on the, what do you want to call it, decline of things going on. Then they finally turned around, they came back up. But during that whole time frame, I was reading, understanding, discovering. And it's, the books were just the leader into making me open up to possibilities. And then when I found Slim Sperling and the tensor technology that he was talking about, and then his books, it was rather amazing as well. So, I mean, he's talking about this copper ring that heals people. And I was like, okay. And all of his books are filled with anecdotal reports of all these different attributes to it. And it was really, really interesting. So I'm like, okay, this is a copper ring. I'm a mechanic. I know how to deal with torches. I can work with metals. I'm an engineer, engineering technician. I can do with precise, mathematics and calculations and stuff like this. So I'm like, all right, let's use the attributes that I've actually built over my lifetime, and let's try making some of these things. It took a little while for me to actually get them to actually function the way, Slim Sperling was talking about. But it was really neat. And then I got them to function, and the first time I was actually able to physically hear and see a change, I was going to a sound bath weekly, and I was making the tensor rings. There are probably maybe 12 inches wide. What is that? Quite a few centimeters, but it was actually fairly big. And I made 4 of them for the lady who was doing the sound bath. And I was like, can you test these, see how these work for you? I had no idea. So she took them and put them underneath 4 of her bowls, and then she didn't get back to me for a couple of days. And then, a couple of days later, she's like, can you make me 10 more? Because she had the regular heart chakra bowls, and then she had the higher chakra bowls. So she had the 14 bowls. And she was playing them. They got louder. When they started to sing and they spun up, they stayed vibrating longer. And the pitch changed a little bit. So it was a physical change that anybody that was there could actually see and hear and feel. So it was really kind of neat. So I'm like, okay, this stuff really does work. And I've actually seen a physical attribute change. And it's not just a personal experience, somebody's anecdotal evidence. So this was actually physical. So I'm like, okay. And then from there, I just kept on going.
Can you share, Peter, a little bit more on that? For people listening that perhaps have never heard of the tensor energy, or how to use copper or anything, what were some of the experiences that kept on happening, and what are the benefits of perhaps working with this?
Okay, I'll start with your first question. What is the tensor technology? Okay, so a tensor ring is one copper wire, and you fold it over. So the energy is going. If you had energy going in, it would be doing a U-turn back towards itself, and then spinning it clockwise, nice and not too tight, but tight. And then you basically cut it to the specific length you're looking for frequency, and then you weld the wires back onto each other. So the one wire on one end, you trace it down to the other side and then braze it back on. That creates a circuit. So now you have a circuit of energy that's actually creating an energy torus that actually generates energy outwards on both directions. So it's a positive energy both sides. And you can visualize that as like a torus.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy field in the middle of that tensor ring, you can visualize as like when you're blowing bubbles. You have the soap film in the middle of the ring. There is a energy field in the middle of a tensor ring. So it's energy coming out the both sides of that ring, and there's an energy field in the middle. So when you're actually experiencing these, it's interesting. You can actually have the really big ones, the 2.5 foot wide ones you can actually put over your body, and you can feel that tensor field going through you.
Mm.
And you can feel it bump up against energies inside your physical and your energy body. It's so those are really interesting. And so the experiences based on the different tensor rings are different. And that's what makes it really interesting. So Slim Sperling came up with the 3 different rings. It was the root chakra, which is a sacred. He came up with a lost cubit, which is more of an emotional. And then he had what he called an empowerment ring, which is more of a sacral energy, creativity. At that point, that's where Slim and his company, his wife's running now. That's where they pretty much stopped at. But there are others that actually brought in more measurements through dowsing and other usages. And basically you have frequencies that cover all the chakras plus some. So it's really interesting on that aspect. There is one tensor ring that I have available that's actually very grounding.
Mm.
You step inside, if you put it on the floor and step inside that ring, you feel like your feet are actually in the ground. Right? And you just feel this energy just pulling. So if you're ungrounded and you step in this thing, all of a sudden you'll feel all of the energies that you needed to be grounded through will be actually flowing through your legs and through your feet. And it's it's one of those things like, ooh, I guess I needed to ground. So that's really kind of interesting. And that's the tensor ring we utilize on one of the tools that was actually a channeled message. So some of the tools that come along with this is originally I created the tensor rings that we've been talking about, and I would actually do a wire wrap of crystal, and I would actually hang that inside the ring, and people could wear it. And I only made maybe 2 dozen of those. And while I was in the middle of this process, I got the channeled message from Archangel Metatron. And Metatron basically said, you need to make some anklets out of a tensor ring, and it has to have 5 crystals in it, and it has to have this copper mesh over that, and go from there. And basically he said, this is going to help people keep their frequency or their vibration while we go through these times. And at the time, I had no idea what that really actually meant. Right. So we had to make it, we had to build them, and then try to get to experimenting and get people that were super sensitive to feel it and understand it. After which it took me about 1.5 years to get them done. And then like 1 year or 2 later, we met a lady in San Francisco who was extremely visual in the way she perceived energy. And she put the anklets on, and she's like, okay, now I understand what you were saying. And she's like, so you take if you visualize your own energy field as a torus, right? So we have energy coming in both sides of that torus through our crown chakra and through our root chakra. And we feel the energy of the environment around us through that. She explained it as, okay, now put a cork in that torus on the top and the bottom. What happens when you cork a torus? Now you just have an oval energy barrier. So now you are recycling your own frequencies inside your own bubble. And all it is a tensor ring and some crystals modifying the frequencies of you in your energy field. So that's really, really cool.
Nice. I as I'm listening to you, like for everyone that is perhaps not familiar, Google like a toroidal field so that you can get an image of what that is. And it's one of the things that I find in my own experience working with lots of people, really interesting how the physical experience or the feeling of something needs to take place before there's a change of consciousness or a change of awareness or an opening to be able to explore what in the past perhaps was invisible, or the things that we are not taught that are real.
Yes.
I work a lot with sound as well, with sound healing and frequencies. And for a lot of people that don't perhaps haven't believed or haven't been open to energy or to spirituality, that is such a tangible way that they can open that door to get into that spaces. And I think that, as you're sharing, when we have different rings or different crystals or something that we can actually feel, it makes it easier to get to that place. And I want to explore, Peter, as a segue. You mentioned that you channeled some of it. How was that experience for you? Like, in terms of, did you ever channel before? Did you know that you were able to channel?
No, actually, channeling didn't come in until I got until Vivian and I got together. But it was the message from Metatron was a channeled message to me, and it was like, okay. It was short and to the point, right? And no real details. There was no conversation. There was no two-way. And a lot of times when I'm doing my work, this is when the messages will come in. So I'll be in the shop making, the anklets and the pendants and stuff like that. The next thing I know, it's like, okay. And I'll be in the middle of making the Archangel Michael pendant when it's on the screen. And I'll just putting things together. And the next thing, it's like, you need to build a pendant with these 3 rings. I'm like, okay. So I basically stop what I'm doing, and then I have to go back and get the measurements for the 3 rings. Then I have to, get the wire out, get the wire cut, braze it all together, and then put them together. And that's like, okay, so now what? And then, as I'm doing these things, it's like, okay, we'll use this. And basically you'll end up utilizing the whole, the rings and the crystals. And then from there, we pour the resin in there, and then we find out what it will do.
Nice.
So it's not a two-way communication piece with these. It's more of like a download, and they just like, okay, here it is, and then we have to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
And then once Vivian and I got together, I would get channeled messages most of the time for her, or when we're with friends. And then the next thing I know, it would literally feel like unconditional love, and emotionally I can't control it and can't contain it. And next thing I know, I'm just telling people, this is what you need to know. And it's Michael coming through. And I swear to God, he has so much fun making me just like turn into a weeping kid. And like, and then after I catch my, collect myself, and then the message comes through. But it allows me to understand where the message is coming from. So, it's very clear.
Yeah. So for everyone that is listening, if you haven't checked yet the episode that we talked with Vivian, go and check it out as well, so that you can hear a little bit of her journey, her life, her experience as well. I'm curious in terms of your relationship with her, in terms of she being an Arcturian hybrid.
Yeah.
How's like, was that like something that you were open from the get-go, or how was that beginning interactions?
It really, as strange as it sounds, I knew what she was talking about. I knew what she was, saying she was. It never really came into the calculation, which is really, considering the amount of pushback and other things that you encounter in real life in public when we go places, and the positive, the negative, the sideways, everything comes through. It never was a concern. And so it was basically unconditional. And when we got together, it it just clicked. It really did.
Beautiful. So, Peter, for people that are listening, as you work with the tensors and you also work with Vivian, like the infinite healing from the stars, how do you support people? Like, what are the things that like people we are needing at these times, and how
Yes.
do you come into that space?
For me, I'm advancing and I am growing as we speak. Where I'm trying to get more out there so that I can actually get this channel messages out to people. Just getting a video channel going. My YouTube channel was just terminated for an interview I just did. So I got to start over again on that. But I probably end up being on Rumble too, so that they can't cancel that. But the biggest thing is everything came in, as far as tools to assist people from the Archangel Metatron with the anklets. The anklets came first, and the 5 crystals. I would have never have understood why you would put these 5 crystals together to create the energy field that these create. Morganite and tanzanite, I had never heard of. I mean, realistically, I'd never heard of those crystals before. And I'm like, okay, I got to use those crystals. Okay, I'll go look those up because I've never heard of them. So, adding those to tiger's eye, black onyx, and lapis lazuli, all of a sudden, when you put them in a tensor ring, it creates that shielding effect, which is rather amazing. So it's okay. So now we have a technology that the angelic realm gave us. So now it morphed from having an anklet, because of that's what was channeled in, to having a pendant through necessity. I had a friend and a client that was wearing the anklets and was criticized so heavily from their partner that they had basically got them back saying, I can't utilize these. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I just threw the question up. So like, okay, guys, how are we going to make this work? And the next thing you know, I got basically a download to make a pendant, and that's where the Metatron pendant came from. And then from there, Michael came through, and then Archangel Shamuel came through. And then we have a multi-dimensional one for higher advancement for spirituality and past lives and future lives and astral travel and all kinds of fun, multiple things with timelines. And it's really kind of fun. So, the tools are all the tools with the Metatron, Michael, PTSD, the Shamuel, and the multi-dimensional all have a shielding effect with those 5 crystals. So thinking about that, when you're walking around your day to day, you're emotionally not going to be feeling everybody around you. So, and as everybody knows right now, everybody is extremely over emotional. Everything nowadays is no longer logic based. It's actually emotional push, because they want to try to, as anybody with an alpha personality would try to persuade you to their point. If they can't do it logically, they're going to do it emotionally. And that's what we're experiencing right now, is that kind of persuasion. And once yes, you can through intentions put shields up and shields up and shields up. But what these tools allow you to do is put on protective energies, and so you can feel your own energy baseline, even when you're outside and doing your thing. And you can just remember that. Once you actually get familiar with your own field and remembering it, then you can actually put up shields really quickly and understand what it's supposed to feel like when the shields are functioning properly. So yeah, it's been extremely helpful for a lot of people, especially sensitives. The Archangel Michael pendant has been an amazing tool for creating a shielding effect, but also creating a calm. When you put it on, you just feel like, that's awesome. And you just feel calm. The turquoise is very calming. Selenite is clearing. And green mica, which is a heart crystal, helps emotionally clearing. As you're wearing this, So you're constantly getting purged and clear and calm. So it's, so when you're wearing these tools, it's very extremely beneficial.
That's so great.
Yeah, and then we do the other ones. We can cover the Archangel Michael or PTSD and the multidimensional if you want to get into those.
Yeah, please.
Okay. The Archangel Michael came through as a request. If you go on the website, there's actually a pendant called the Chill Pill, and it's actually turquoise and selenite. So it's calming and clearing, and very strongly in that fashion. And we had some therapists utilizing it with some clients. And she was like, this works great. Now I need you to make me one that'll actually allow the crystals to really do some work. Instead of just creating a calming effect for the client, we need to be able to pull out the energies that are causing the spikes in emotional trauma from the emotional traumas and all that stuff. So this is where the Shamuel came from, and it still has the Michael shielding and the Metatron shielding, but it also has 10 more crystals in it, which are specifically for keeping your energy balanced, allowing you to purge while you're awake and while you're in dream state. So it allows you to actually clear your energy. And so as things come up, it's literally helping reduce the emotional baggage as that trauma comes up every single time, to the point where you actually feel what the pendant is doing while you're wearing it. You can almost feel like there's a vortex of energy coming through your pendant on your chest. And you can feel the energy being pulled and moved, manipulated around. So it's actually pretty powerful in that form. So yeah, we already have quite a few of these pendants out: first responders, police, fire, retired military. So we're trying to get them out to even more of these guys, because this is what it's primarily for. But not, there are other people that have trauma. They're not going to negate that. But it was intended to help people with trauma and and heavy stress. So, and the feedback I get is when you put it on, you have this amazing level of just calm. And you just, doesn't really matter what hits you. It's just like, you're just calm.
That's so great.
It's just very, yeah.
As I said a lot of times to people, there's so much movement of energy and so much upheaval and chaos sometimes based on how people are interacting with the energies of this time. And one of the things that I keep on sharing with people is to find the ways to slow down, to find that place of coming back to that stillness, coming back to a place of being relaxed, to be able to be with what is. And as you're sharing, like, yes, we're all experiencing, based on what came before and some of the energies that are coming around, different things. And sometimes we do need the physical tools that will aid us to do that. Like as you're sharing the tensors, like I work with sound. I use a lot of orgonites as well. I have them always like with me to be able, and different crystals, and this is one of the things that I find at this time that we're living, that more and more of this is starting to become more available, and more people are knowing. This is, one of the reasons why I shared during my life creating this podcast, to be able to showcase some of the things that are happening around the world, so that more and more people are able to awaken and to be able to explore different ways.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, it's totally, absolutely your point's very well taken. It is, right now, it is trying to get this message in all the messages of what we're trying to do, and all the people we bump into that have, a message. Because right now I meet people all the time that have these amazing, well, I connect to here and I connect to that, and it's like, you wouldn't believe what I get from messages, and this is awesome. It's like, I'm just learning about it. It's like, okay, so why didn't I hear about this before? And this is what you're doing right now with your show, and it's getting more of these people, including myself, out there, so that if if per se this is your way of helping, or or if this is my way of helping, this will help. This is great. If there are other ways of helping them progress and waken up and raise their vibration, become less and less influenced by a narrative, a political agenda, whatever it might be. Yeah, let you be you instead of being controlled, or at least guided in a different direction than where you'd want to be.
Mm. And therefore, as we're moving in these times, and as we are saying, like people are experiencing this in different ways because of, like we are a lot of times being moved, as you're saying, to different ways of behaving and different patterns that are just unconscious there. What are some of the things that you shared with people to be able to live more consciously and to be on that path of ascension?
My biggest one is teaching people how powerful they really are with intentions. And that's truthfully, it is the biggest one. We are so powerful in intentions. And one of the things that we've actually discovered with the tools is when you put on, let's just say you put on an Archangel Michael pendant for the first time. Basically, what you do is you tell it to reset. And then without just thinking it, not have to say it, just think it, reset. And then the next thing you think, just tell it. I basically tell people, it's like, okay, now tell it to go to full power. You don't do what? Tell it to go to full power. What does that mean? It's just like amp it up, bring it on, kind of thing. And when people do that, it's actually interesting. You just sit there, people are like, okay. And the next thing you know, you see it, their mouth will start twitching, or they'll start smiling, and their eyes open up going, oh my God. And they actually felt it. So they can actually, through and own their own intentions, and through their first real experience with energy, doing all of these things all at once. Now you have an experience of, oh my God, I thought that and it did it. I've never done that before. It's like I have to go push a button to make these tools work. This one does not. And these tools don't need batteries or anything like that. It's just you put it on and then you control it through your thoughts. And I've had people actually where they put it on where it's too strong for them. I tell them, it's like, go tell it to calm down to your comfort level. And they just do that. And they're like, oh, well, that's better. And okay, did you just catch what you just did? You thought through your thoughts, actually reset it, went to full power, and brought it right back down. So now you can, through thought, tell it exactly what you need. The next step is, it's like, okay, so when you're wearing the tool, give it an intention. What do you want it to do today? If you're going into, if you're going into like something that's hostile, you can say, okay, make me invisible to anybody that would do me harm, or, if it's just work, it's like, would give me a hard time today. So you can walk right by the individuals and not have to deal with it. If you're doing like a meditation, it's like, okay, I know I have to deal with this, whatever this is for the individual, because everybody's different. Let's pull this out by the roots. Not by I don't want to feel the symptoms of what the roots are causing. I want to pull this out by the roots. Let's pull out this experience by the roots so I can no longer have to actually deal with the side effects of that experience, and just sit there, hold it on the intention, and then meditate with it. And then you'll feel it pull. And it turns into this massive vacuum of energy coming right through your heart chakra where the pendant sits. And it's very powerful.
So beautiful. I'm curious, Peter, if you would be able to share as well on where we are now in this time, that there's a lot of changes and there's so much happening. What are some of the either channel messages that you get, or your own perspective of the potential of where we are going to?
Well, we are heading in the right direction. Let's just put it this way. From how I see it, and I love this analogy. I heard it like a year or two ago, and I love the analogy. It's just like you're playing, if you have two master chess players playing a game, and each one is looking 8, 10, whatever steps, moves ahead. What if I move here, he's going to do this, right? So we're living through a master chess match. We already know we won, but they know they lost. and they're not going to give it up until it's done. Because because for some of the things that have happened, they're crimes against humanity, and that has some serious consequences. So they're going to push and push and push until the day is done where they cannot do that anymore. So what we're going through now is the throes of power trying to maintain power and control. And you can see it by the narrative shifting on the news, what they're trying to project here and what they're trying to project. And different countries are doing it differently all over the place. And it depends on the soft spots and where their politics are, and where the population is and where they're sensitive to it. And they'll push that narrative as strongly as they can. But it's like if we just step back a little bit, the narratives have become almost transparent if you're willing to see it. And that's the biggest thing. You have to be willing to say, okay, I'm looking at this and I really didn't believe, my government would be constantly lying to me and working with corporations and media to manipulate my perspective. And if you're willing to open that can of worms, it's just going to be like, okay, you're going down the rabbit hole at that point, and all of a sudden everything, the synchronicity starts showing up. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't realize that. And what's going to happen is the more you become awake and aware and not be blinded by the narrative or what they're projecting, you can actually become, you'll raise your vibration by just being you and your vibration and see straight through it. So it's right now is a time of awakening as far as the deceptions are going to be visible. Very much so. And it's going to get more and more visible to the point where we're going to start seeing physical evidence that proves what what has happened. And it's no longer a conspiracy, or it's no longer, any label that they place on it, because there's labels placed on everything to keep you from looking at it. So we're on a journey of awakening. Now, if you're awake right now and, it's like, how about today? Can we do it today? I'd like to get this over with. We're, those of us that are already awake, waiting for it to be done. The problem is we have to wake up everybody else. So that's what, what you're doing, what I'm doing, and the way we go out in public and do conferences, and I make comments and talk to people. I'm like, we need to wake more people up. The faster we wake people up, the faster we can get through this.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm always so interested in this. I had a big part of my background when I was a teenager. For some years, one of the biggest influences in my life was Tibetan Buddhism, and the understanding as well on what it's called the path of the Bodhisattva, and it's about reaching enlightenment, or actually not reaching complete enlightenment or paranirvana before everybody else is awakened, is illuminated, is free from suffering. And in a sense, this is and why I resonate as well with this understanding. Like, yes, I have shifted my consciousness, and I realize a lot of things that I didn't used to, and I still see so many people that are not in that, and that we need more with all of our individual differences as well, and uniqueness that we all have within that. But more realization and more of what's going on, and to be able to have the tools to be with more knowledge, with more understanding, because as well, the more that we know, sometimes it's more challenging.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. The more you know it, the harder it is. And the thing is, as we start understanding more and more and more, I find it harder and harder to have conversations with those that are still stuck in, well, to lack of a better word, stuck in the matrix. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like we're Neo. We're already out of the matrix, and we're just looking at people. It's like, knock, knock. Can you guys wake up? And it's just like, okay. I'd love to be able to get people coming up more and more and more and faster, but you can't even have conversations because the political tools that have been put in place over the last couple of years is they will not have a conversation with you. They will instantly attack. So we can't even have a conversation because that's what's been programmed into them, which makes it very sad. And it's very limiting for them. So, I mean, you can't even have a conversation. Why do you believe that? And then it's an attack. Well, but why are you attacking me over this? I'm just asking you a question. And it just becomes, it's like, okay, why? It's it's nonsensical and when you're looking down and going, why can't we have a conversation anymore? This is gone. I mean, you guys have lost your mind here, guys. Come on, wake up. But a lot of times we can't. So what we've been trying to do is basically raise the vibration of everybody that we come in contact with, just by being in their area, just be like an area of effect, raise my vibrational bubble out nice and wide and just bring the vibration high. So as you just walk by people, you just bump up their frequency little bit by little bit. And the more people we can get that are a high vibration to understand that and just shed the light, share it, bring it out. That'll bring up people without actually having to deal with the confrontation of the narrative. And it'll actually force them to have the internal conversation that they need to have without trying to blame anybody else.
Yes. And there's, as I always said, there's so much conditioning and programming that we have that, like, I often say, like, I don't judge people, even if they are not open to seeing things as I see them, because they have all of these things that were programmed into them. And as I can approach them with compassion, even if they are not open to having a dialogue or as you say, conversation, it's like, well, like, what can I do? And as you share that, I love that is I can raise my vibration, I can expand my field, and I can allow that field to actually impact others and have that ripple effect. And even if they don't realize what's going on, it's starting to influence their own feel and their own, as you're saying, that inner dialogue. I really like that.
Yeah, it's I saw a meme showing that a little while ago. It was just like the one person showing light, and the person was like walking up to somebody, and then that person saw the light, and then everybody that was around them, all of a sudden, everybody around them, it just started glowing and growing. It's like a room full of darkness, and one with a candle, all of a sudden, everybody starts lighting up. So yes. Yeah, we're on that path because we're not really a minority anymore. We're actually coming up. The percentage levels of people that are awake are getting there quite a bit. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know they're getting up there. They're no longer single digits, put it that way. So it's a good number. And as long as it keeps growing, we will definitely get out of this without too much of a problem. But we are going to have traumas before the end. It's just part of the waking up process, because people are going to be like, okay, did we really need to do that? Well, I didn't need it, but somebody else did.
Yes, it's that collapse that needs to take place sometimes before a change happens, and hopefully we go through it with the least amount of challenges, at least individually. Yes. and as a collective. So, Peter, for everyone that is perhaps resonating with your messages, that are interested in diving a little bit deeper into your work and the objects and the tools that you are providing, where can they find them?
Well, the company is Energies of Service. You can find me at energiesofservice.com. I also have Instagram at Energies of Service and Facebook Energies of Service. We're expanding all the time. It's like I have to recreate my YouTube because it was there. It's not there anymore. So that has to come back up. But we're getting around, and we're starting to, be out there more for people. And we're going to be traveling all over the world this year to basically between Vivian and I, we're going to be shedding the light everywhere. We're going, England, Egypt, Greece, California, Nevada. We're probably going to go to the East Coast too at some point in time this year, but we're trying to do our best to connect with other people and bring the vibration up and try to bring this era to an end. So we can actually raise the vibration, bring us to a new collective, a new version of humanity.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you for that. And I'm going to share the links on everything on the show notes so that everybody has access. So thank you so much, Peter, for taking the time, for sharing as well your energy and what you're doing with everyone more and more, because as you said, we need more and more of this. And for everyone listening, let us know what resonated with you. What did you hear? What is something that you'd like to share with us? Just put a comment anywhere that you're finding this episode. Go and check out the website so that you can see if you resonate with that. How can you get one to be part of your field of energy? So thanks, Peter, for taking the time, for being here, and thanks everyone as well for listening and watching with us.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me on, and it was a pleasure. Absolutely. I look forward to reading the questions and comments. It'll be good.
Beautiful. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.